The European Court of Human Rights ruled on Monday that Turkey should pay €90 million in compensation to the relatives of the missing persons and to the enclaved Greek Cypriot residents of the Karpas Peninsula. It's all due to the violations arising from the Turkish invasion of the island in 1974. With me is lawyer Achilleas Demetriades, who is well known in Cyprus for all the different cases he's brought to the European Court of Human Rights in relation to properties lost during the invasion and the missing persons. Achilleas, this is, I think, the biggest compensation that's been awarded by the European Court of Human Rights. Where does it take us after all these years of litigation?
Well, it's certainly groundbreaking. I mean, the fact that this judgment came out in the way it came out is really astonishing, and it is a humongous step in the protection of human rights. But I think, in fairness to your listeners, we should analyze it on two levels. I think it should be analyzed on the European level and on the Cyprus level. On the European level, I think if one looks at the judgment itself, will confirm the groundbreaking nature of this. When the court talks about a new era in the enforcement of human rights, and the judgment marking an important step in ensuring respect for the rule of law in Europe, this is the kind of talk that the Supreme Court of Europe, in terms of human rights, is expressing itself, not just for the Cyprus-Turkey scenario, but possibly for the Georgia-Russia issue, or more recently, the Ukraine versus Russia situation with the Crimea. So we're looking at dispute resolution mechanisms before the European level, which have an effect on how states interact with each other, and how violations of human rights are now punishable with specific amounts of money. And I think that is the first time we have seen that kind of judgment, and it is certainly a groundbreaking position. Now,
it's something, I presume, from what you've said, that governments may take into consideration before they act in future.
Absolutely. I mean, the award made not just the fact that the violation was established, but that part of this violation now has a price tag, could act as a deterrent for rogue countries which are thinking of violating human rights in another country.
And I think I'm right in saying that Turkey is still liable for damages despite the passage of time. And if they don't pay up in the 18 months they've been given, a penalty will be added. Does this mean that the longer they delay paying, the more they're going to have to pay?
Absolutely. The system in Strasbourg, and this is nothing new, it's nothing specific to the interstate case, is that normally 3 months is allowed to the state that has been awarded damages against to comply with that. And if within those 3 months there is no payment, then there is interest at a rate which is 3 percentage points above the European interest rate. Currently, that is about 1%. So if Turkey does not pay within the 3 months, there will be at least a 4% interest charged on the amount. I think that's fair. It's something that has been going on in Strasbourg for a very long time, and the country that has an award against it cannot get away by not paying and therefore enjoy an interest-free loan. So we have that. Of course, nobody wants to go on not being paid just because the interest is good. I think the important thing is to concentrate on how people will make Turkey comply with this judgment, which is not an easy job.
No, can they make Turkey comply? I mean, they took a very long time to pay Titina Loizides, didn't they?
Well, yeah, but doesn't this case remind you of that? I mean, the statements that are coming out of Ankara in terms of this judgment does not bind us, this judgment is legally flawed, and that sort of thing, is exactly what they were saying in 1998 when the award against Loizidou came out. And then 5 years later, sure enough, they came and paid up with interest. So
now, that was a payment to an individual person. One thing that I think raises a few questions: who is going to receive this money? I know who the court says should receive it. Is that going to be, assuming Turkey does pay up, what do? Write a cheque to the Cyprus government, and it's up to the government of the day to hand it round to whoever is entitled?
Well, there's two issues you raise. The first issue is whether Turkey is going to pay the Republic of Cyprus, because Turkey says that the Republic of Cyprus Cyprus does not exist, so it would be rather strange for it to pay 90 million to a state that it does not exist. But I think there can be solutions to that. The point is that Turkey has to cough up 90 million plus interest. Now, how does the Republic of Cyprus deal with the distribution? The judgment has already pointed that out. It has 18 months from the date that the money is received to set up a system under the supervision of the Committee of Ministers to distribute the funds to the people that are entitled to that. And that is 1,456 families of missing persons as identified in the judgment, which among them will have to split 20 million, and the other 60 million will be given to the enclaved. Now the question is, who are the enclaved? And we have two limits as to that calculation. The first one is 1974, when there were about 20,000 enclaved in the Karpas Peninsula, and today where there's just over 300 people left in that. And there will have to be a policy decision to be taken as to what will be the time which will be considered as the one applicable to determine the number of people that were in fact enclaved. And perhaps one will adopt 1994, which is the date on which the application was filed before the court. But people should rest assured that if their relatives were living in the Karpas Peninsula and they were enclaved and they have unfortunately passed away, that is an inheritable right, and the heirs should be entitled to whatever compensation is finally handed down to the people who are entitled to this money.
Now, we've been talking about the enclaved and the missing. You, of course, deal very extensively with the property issue. Does this have any bearing at all on how things proceed in that direction?
Well, it has a huge bearing in that it has now clarified that the setting up of the Movable Property Commission in the occupied areas after the Dimopoulos judgment is no bar to the continuing violation that Turkey is committing for property rights. To put it in the positive, just because Turkey has set up this commission is no longer absolved from the liability that it has because of the continuing violation of Greek Cypriot property rights in the occupied areas. So just because there's this committee set up doesn't mean that Turkey should not stop from giving out properties to foreigners and selling Greek Cypriot land and all those things which have established the violation so far. So it's a very important judgment in that respect because it is now clear that even though the Property Commission has been set up, this in no way changes the obligation that Turkey has to stop committing the violations.
And then, of course, we also have to look at the fact that if we're talking about missing people, there are missing people on both sides of the divide. What is the future prospect of Turkish Cypriots taking the Cyprus government to court in trying to get compensation for their missing people?
Well, if I were the Cyprus government, in an effort to be balanced in my approach, I would come out and say that whatever compensation was awarded for Greek Cypriots, that compensation will be made available to Turkish Cypriot missing persons when the Greek Cypriots are paid this amount of money, so that the Cyprus government, acting in fairness, will compensate Turkish Cypriots who have been harmed by the events over the last 50 years on exactly the same level as Turkey is paying the Greek Cypriot relatives. In that way, the Cyprus government will show to the world how fair and how representative it is for the whole population of the island of Cyprus.